537, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I pulled as much of this audio, KGB and Joan, as I could of Adam Carolla. And I will admit that some of the editing isn't the greatest, just because, quite frankly, it's a lot. It's a lot of curse words. It is a lot of curse words.
Should I prepare the dump button to be safe, or do you think you got it all?
Just stay by it. Stay by it. Let's see here. This is Adam Carolla, and basically he's from California. He's from Southern California. And part of his issue is that you have a bunch of liberals, and they are living in Southern California. And they're all now out there screaming about what's going on in California. And he's saying, you voted for these people. You voted for Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor. This is part of what Adam Carolla had. Dump button, right? I think I got it all. But this is Adam Carolla, and he's ticked.
The people who live in Malibu, who live in Santa Monica, who live in the Palisades, those are some of the most progressive blue voters in the world, or in the United States. They are a bastion of blue. So what those guys did is, all the people in the Palisades, I checked it out. It's about 80% blue, 80% progressive, 80% Democrat. Now, these are all sitting around crying about Karen Bass, water pressure, how come the forest wasn't cleared of all the brush, what's happening with the infrastructure. You guys all voted for Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. You all voted for Gavin Newsom. And now you can get what you get. Oh, now that your house is on fire, well, now you're thinking about something else. Now you want to know what's going on. What's going on around here? You didn't give a shit about what was going on when other people's houses were on fire, but now you care.
And he's talking about people having to go to, like, the LA Planning Commission, going to the Coastal Commission, and pulling permits. And
he sounds really mad.
Oh, he's mad.
Oh, yeah.
He's mad.
Oof.
Because he knows he talks about, I'll be able to air more of this later on, but he also talks about Bill Maher and how Bill Maher turned. Because we all know that Bill Maher was incredibly liberal, right? Remember all that?
Oh, yeah.
And then somewhere Bill Maher turned. Do you know what turned Bill Maher? He wanted to put solar panels on his home in Los Angeles. And he had to deal with regulations, and he had to deal with commissions. And he realized, oh my God, what is all of this? And so Maher realized firsthand how much of a pain in the arse it is with all of these regulations, and all of these regulations that are favored by and implemented by and enforced by Democrats.
Yeah.
And so he's like, this sucks. And so Maher suddenly, along comes Donald Trump, and Bill Maher is no Donald Trump fan, but let's be honest. He is a lot more of a Trump supporter than he used to be. There's some things that Trump stands for that Bill Maher and Trump have in common. And so now you've got Maher, and he is far more conservative, far more in the middle, because the regulations and the Democrats, they impacted him in a negative way. And so that's exactly what Adam Carolla is saying. And so part of what he's saying, part of this rant, is that there's going to be a lot of Democrats who are going to turn, like Bill Maher did. There's going to be a lot of Democrats who are going to try to rebuild if they try to rebuild their homes, and they're going to turn Republican, or at the very least a lot more moderate, because they're having to deal firsthand with their own policies. And their policies are terrible. And so part of what's going to happen, I believe, is that we're going to see a lot more people moving to places like Tennessee. Their home has been destroyed. Okay, so you've got months, if not years, trying to rebuild your home. And you can't get through all of the red tape. Maybe you had insurance, maybe you didn't, but you can't get through all of that red tape and the regulations and the permits. To Bill Maher, I don't know if he ever did, but you can't get through all of that. And they're just going to say, screw it. We're going to move to a place like Tennessee where we can rebuild and rebuild for a lot cheaper. I'd be willing to bet that there's going to be a big time change in California, because we already know in the last election in 2024, Donald Trump had, and I forget what the number was, but a lot more people voted for Donald Trump than in previous years. And this is a horrifically liberal state. Well, now you already have people that are realizing how impactful voting for Democrats and progressives can be to the negative. And so I'd be willing to bet that this may be that instance. This may be that moment in California where people realize how destructive the policies of Democrats can be.
You don't think any of them are too far gone?
When it hits you the way that these people are being hit, and you can make a direct line, and you can, in this case, you can make a direct line from progressive policies to the disaster of these wildfires right now, and the firefighters not being able to fight the fires or not being ready. You can make a direct line to their policies, the Democrat policies. And so when it really hits your life, when it really hits your wallet, this isn't hurting people in Van Nuys, which is a crap hole. I used to live there, so I can say that. This isn't hurting people in Van Nuys. This is hurting people in Malibu. This is hurting people in Pacific Palisades, Studio City as well, the Hollywood Hills. That's where all the leftists go. These are the people that voted for, as Adam Carolla says, these are all the people that voted for Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and all these other people in the city council and whatever. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And I'd be willing to bet, Joan, that a lot of them are going to say, screw it. We're going to move to Texas. We're going to move to Tennessee. We're going to move to South Carolina. We're going to move to places where we can rebuild a life for ourselves. And then we'll just fly back in when we have to, shoot. Because they're going to make it impossible to rebuild.
I think that's kind of the point.
You know what, Joan? That's one of the things that Adam Carolla said.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great line. It's got like 3 F-bombs in it. But his point is that these permitting people and these commissions, they don't want folks living on the coastline. They don't want people living on PCH because they want to protect...
Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah. Okay. They want to protect...
You're such a California guy.
I know, sorry. But they want to protect the fish and the frogs and the grass and all that kind of stuff. So, and he uses other examples. Carson Daly wanted to build a swimming pool. And when Carson Daly wanted to build a swimming pool, you know what they made him do? They made him double hole it. Do you know what that is? You got to build 2 holes. Because if the first hole leaks, it's got to be able to get into the second hole. And it cost Carson Daly twice as much to build a swimming pool. Suzanne,
that's just pure insanity.
Suzanne, I remember this story. Suzanne Summers, if I remember right, she had to move out of California because they wouldn't let her build her home. And it's just, I don't know. By the way, did you hear James Woods?
I've watched a couple of interviews with him. It's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking.
James Woods is on CNN, and he is talking because his home was destroyed, and his little niece. This kind of makes me a little teary. His little niece comes to him with her piggy bank, offering to help him rebuild, and he described that moment on CNN, and he started crying.
I'm 77 years old, man. I can't walk up these hills. It's like Mount Everest here. It's like, pretty steep. So, it's just, Sarah was on with her 8-year-old niece last night, and she came out. I'm sorry. Just, one day you're swimming in the pool, and the next day it's all gone. But she came out with her little Yeti piggy bank for us to rebuild our house.
Oh.
I mean, he's got his face in his hands at this point, and he's crying. And you know what? James Woods, everyone knows he is incredibly conservative. However, the anchor on CNN was very consoling, and
I was kind of surprised. I was wondering if she was goofing on him.
No, she's not.
She was sincere.
Oh my gosh, James Woods, we all hope that you will be able to rebuild your house, maybe starting with that little Yeti piggy bank, and we're just glad that you're okay.
I thought I would be stronger than this.
You know what? Strength is not measured by whether, you hold in crying or not. Strength is what you are doing now and helping your neighbors and shining a light on the great, amazing work of all those firefighters and emergency crews out there.
And he is out there and he is talking about the firefighters, and people are focused, and I will admit I am too. People are focused on what went wrong with leading up to these fires, with no water in the fire hydrants that had been stolen, the reservoirs that are empty, all the red tape, the fish that the Democrats and Gavin Newsom have been trying to protect. That's why there's no water leading into the reservoirs, and all of that climate stuff and the red tape and just all of that stuff. And people are focused on that, as they should be. But there's a lot of heroes. Firefighters, people trying to save their neighbors' homes with their hoses. I mean, those kinds of things, those kinds of stories are all over the place in Southern California, because, when the government lets you down, and this is a life lesson, friends, when the government lets you down, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect your family. And people are in California, they're banding together to do everything that they can to help each other. Now, James Woods, a little bit later on, he was on Fox News, and his tears had dried, and his anger was definitely in overdrive as he started talking about Gavin Newsom.
If it is true that things were handled this way, if it is true that Gavin Newsom is the absolute blithering idiot that I believe he is in the way he has handled fire management in this state again and again and again and again, this isn't a wake-up call. This is the kind of thing they have tribunals for, where they try people and say, you had an oath of office to perform certain duties. When you're the fire chief, this isn't a social justice exercise that you're in charge of. This is you getting water to areas that need water because there are fires in 100-mile-an-hour winds burning houses to the ground.
Yeah, and he is right. He is absolutely right. And there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of people who are going to be very angry. And I don't know, Joan, am I wrong on this? I don't know what people are saying on the super text line, and I can't do it now. Super text line. Here's what I want to know is, because they're getting on to me about not staying on time on my clock. So we all were in that meeting. So, but here's my question for super texters, because there's people that are saying, including Gavin Newsom, and I'll play the audio after 6, that this isn't the time to have these conversations about finger pointing. And my opinion is it is absolutely the right time for finger pointing, because now is the time that everybody is actually paying attention. 5:50 on Nashville's Morning News. Joe and Jones, what's coming up in the news at 6?
Well, we've got our eye on that impending snowstorm. Looks like it'll get started sooner than forecasters first thought. We've got those details. And why Mayor O'Connell's transit plan may get nixed. We've got those stories at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.